It got real for me when I sent out a giant shipment of about 250 books to my VIP early supporters, and they've been sending me selfies. My book has been traveling around the country, and I think that's when it got real. I thought that the writing the book part would be the hardest for me, and I think the pre-sale was one of the hardest. I'm not used to being honestly on social media that much. I like to connect with people, but the experience of really talking about a book which didn't exist in a concrete way yet was really challenging, and putting myself out there, I felt like it was a vulnerable experience. But as I started to talk to more people and I really got early supporters, that really was like rocket fuel to keep me going and get through the rest of it. I'll admit I was a little bit of a skeptic. I always thought that you wrote a book in a dark room by your or cabin in the woods. I always
Right.
thought that's how you did it. And when this opportunity came along to write with a community, at first I was like, how is that? How would you write with a community? I didn't get it. But as time went on, it became really obvious why that was so important, not just the editorial support or the teaching support, but having friends. And I've made a couple women actually very good friends, and we've never even met in person, but just taking the journey together through all the ups and downs really bonded us together. And again, I said there were some hard parts along the way. So having them in particular, but the community as well, really helped. The worst detour, I'll call it a detour, an unfortunate detour through citations. I'm a neuroscientist by training, so I did a PhD. So I'm very familiar with citations. I thought I was like a pro. I've written papers, academic, et cetera, et cetera. So when it came time to do the citations for the book, it was different. And the format that they needed and wanted was totally different. And I just went into this horrible spiral back and forth where I just couldn't seem to get it right. I was spending a lot of time. I was like pulling out my hair, and having the support of my friends and colleagues really got me through that one. I learned was that I needed to practice what I preach a little bit. I talk about being a better human and showing up at work as a whole person. I realized as I went along writing is that there are many parts of me as a human that I don't bring to work and I haven't shared. And so the book, I wrote personal stories where I shared things that like a lot of people didn't know about me. And so I don't know when they read it if they're going to be surprised or not. But I think it was the getting vulnerable and making it a little more personal, like less academic and more personal, surprised me both how challenging that was and how rewarding it was. There's one story which I hadn't told anybody before I wrote this book. I would wear heels to work, and we had a fire drill. I was in this beautiful office building where I saw patients. I had my own business as an entrepreneur. It was beautiful. I dressed in heels. I had this whole thing, and we had a fire drill, and I had a patient in the room, and we tried to get out of the building quickly, and I fell down a flight of stairs in my heels beside my patient. And this is a patient who I've been doing psychotherapy with. It was a very intense psychotherapeutic relationship. And I'm like flat on my face at the bottom of the
Mm.
stairwell with my patient. So it's just a funny moment that I hadn't shared because it was embarrassing. And then I was like, sure, I'll put it in the book. One of the things about writing I learned or maybe amplified was the fact that creativity is an important force for me in my personal life, but actually makes me work better. And then I'm working a company called Belong Health, and it's a startup. It's about 2 years old. It's a healthcare company. We focus on taking care of traditionally very vulnerable and underserved patients. And the company is growing. I got to help build the culture from day one, including a lot of the stuff I researched for the book. I was researching for the company. If you're thinking about it, that means you should do it. But don't go it alone unless you really are stoic. But I think doing it with a community made a difference. I feel very thankful that I've been able to do this. And I had a book. There's like a book sitting on my shelf. It wasn't even a year ago hardly that I sat down and said, yes, I'll do this.